Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto had all the power of a demon lord and got harem? If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So without wasting any time, let's get into the video. Lightning illuminated the night sky and was accompanied by a crack of thunder. Rain poured down in heavy droplets from the darkened clouds above. Everyone was running for shelter as the storm blew over the peaceful village of Konoha, starting off as a light drizzle that transitioned into a massive downpour in mere seconds. Merchants hurried to stow their merchandise away as gale force winds howled through the village, even the massive trees being swayed by the wind. October 10th, a day that will forever be etched into the memories of every Konohagakure villager. Be they civilian or shinobi, everyone will remember the day of the dreaded Kyuubi attack. The day their beloved Yondaime Hokage fell in combat against the mighty Bijk, sacrificing his life to seal the Kyuubi into a newborn child. A child who he wanted to be treated with the utmost respect and reverence for keeping the Kyuubi at bay, his very own flesh and blood that was the container of the beast. Namikaze Minato, a fearsome shinobi indeed. Respected by many, feared by even more, his actions brought fame and prosperity to Konoha, the villagers worshipping him as their ideal Hokage. Yet when he has passed on, his wish made with his last dying breath was ignored and spat on by the very same people. October 10th, 6 years after that faithful day. Another bolt of lightning flashed across the sky, briefly bathing the streets of Konoha in a white light. The brief flash was more than enough to illuminate a terror-stricken face, a face that housed two cerulean blue orbs. The owner of said face was a mere 6-year-old child with dirty blonde hair, 3 pairs of whisker marks on his cheeks, and wearing a simple black t-shirt and pants. His small bare feet splashing through the puddle-ridden streets, his clear blue eyes glancing in every direction for a means of escaping his pursuers. His short legs carried him past a neon sign at the beginning of the red light district, a seedy and corrupted location that definitely wasn't the place for a child. Yet the ease in which he navigated the alleyways suggested that he had been through here many times before, enough times to know where the shortcuts and escape routes were. The heavy downpour kept up, causing damp blonde locks to drape over his eyes, obscuring his vision slightly as he continued his attempt to escape the shadowy figures that tracked him. He knew it was useless, he knew it was futile, but he kept on going. His logical mind told him that there was no way he could evade them and that in the end they would catch him anyway, just like all the other times. However, his instincts told him that he couldn't give up this time. They told him that this time if they caught him, there would be much more pain than all the previous times combined. Wisely choosing to heed that advice, he ran and ran until he finally slipped up. He had taken a wrong turn and ended up running smack into a dead end, a solid wall of red brick stared him in the face. Spinning around slightly, he let out a startled cry when he spotted the tall shadowed figures advancing on him. Backing up against the wall, the child fell onto his behind and curled up on himself in an attempt to delay the inevitable. Rough, calloused hand clamped down upon his own. Pulling them above his head, the child gazed fearfully into a pair of jade green eyes that held nothing but rage and malice. His pursuers were all dressed in black waterproof cloaks with hoods to protect their identities, the grin on his captor's face unnerved him. Nowhere to run, Kyuubi Gaki, Kyuubi brat, a gleeful voice escaped those rows of pearly white teeth. The child was none other than Uzumaki Naruto, the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko. Why do you do this to me? I didn't do anything to you people. Naruto cried out in fear as he struggled fruitlessly to escape his predicament. A sharp gasp escaped his throat as a rough hand clamped around his neck and he found himself staring into a pair of strange eyes. They were red in color, with 3 black comma-shaped marks in each eye. Sharingan. A deep dark voice hissed inside his head. Before he could even think about the strange voice, the comma marks started spinning rapidly and he felt his muscle control weaken. The hand clamped around his neck tightened slightly before relinquishing its grasp on him, his small body slumping to the ground. Naruto knew he had to get out of there, but his body wouldn't respond to his commands. It was as if he had just run around the elemental nations a few times. His arms and legs felt like lead, commanding them to move only resulted in sluggish responses that weren't going to get him anywhere. Before he knew it, he was roughly grasped around the chin and his head yanked upwards to look into the darkness of the hood. Tonight you will pay for all the people you have killed, demon. Tonight you will experience suffering beyond your comprehension. Tonight will be the night that our revenge will be complete. The jade green-eyed man spat in his face before dropping him back onto the ground. Naruto's eyes widened and he let out a small whimper when he caught the glint of metallic objects being drawn from the cloaks. He closed his eyes knowing what was about to occur. The first blow connected with his back, it was a metal pipe, but he clenched his teeth and bared it. Then the blows started falling one after another, never letting up in their barrage as they rained strike after strike down on the child. The dull sound of metal striking soft flesh echoed throughout the alleyway, as did the small cries of pain that accompanied them. The sound of the pouring rain covered it up though. Naruto had reflexively curled up into a ball again as he waited for the beating to end, letting out small cries whenever a blow connected with his head. He could feel his own bones breaking and muscles bruising under the powerful blows, yet the warm feeling always came back and healed him. Time passed as lightning flashed and thunder roared. Nobody came to save the blonde-haired child from his unjust punishment. "Don't expect the Hokage to save you now, brat," a rough voice growled as more blows descended on him. "We specifically waited for the monsoon season. This storm was perfect for our plans, as the Sandaime would believe you to be safely tucked away in bed already, hahaha." A foot connected with his gut, knocking the air out of him and flinging him against the hard brick wall. Naruto cracked open his eyes slightly to see a lanky figure pull out a whip from within his cloak. He tried to scramble out of the way, but there was nowhere for him to run. The whip cracked as a grunt of pain escaped his lips. The man reared back and snapped it again and again. Each pull of the whip wearing down the fabric of his shirt until it fell apart in scraps, yet it did not cease. Why do they do this to me?" he thought to himself as he cried out each time the leather weapon snapped against his back, splitting open the skin which only served to increase the pain as salty raindrops fell onto the wound. They gave neither rest nor reprieve as two more whips joined the process, their stinging blows not giving any time for his healing to kick in. Angry red wounds lined his back as the leader walked up to him and held something out. It was a lemon, and he crushed the fruit in his hands. An agonized scream drowned out by a crack of thunder sounded from the alleyway as the juice seeped into his wounds being aggravated by the acidic properties as he writhed in pain. He lay there as the man tore off his pants and undergarments, leaving him in the nude on the cold cement floor. "You will tonight, QB, but before that we're going to enjoy stripping you of your dignity and inflict as much pain and humiliation as possible." The man chuckled darkly along with the others. Naruto refused to let the tears out as he was slammed brutally against the wall, gritting his teeth as they crucified him by his arms against a brick wall. Streams of blood flowing from the point on his wrists that the katanas were driven through and into the wall. He hung there as the leader motioned another figure forward. A container was shaken in his face, the darkness and the falling rain made it hard for Naruto to see what it was. The man reached inside and pulled out a thin, slender metallic object which he now recognized as a senbon. There was no escape, the only thing left to do was to endure it. The senbon was stabbed into his lower back and suddenly he couldn't move his legs anymore. "I have removed your control over your legs to make it easier for us, but don't worry, you will still be able to feel the pain inflicted on you." Naruto's eyes widened when he heard the sound of zips being undone and the men around him dropped their pants onto the ground, their flaccid members hardening slightly already. Warning: rape scene. A small blonde eyed the leader warily as he approached, his young mind not yet able to comprehend what was about to happen to him. The man rubbed his erection against Naruto's ass crack as a malicious grin crept across his face. "I'll be sure to make this as painful as possible. My name is Haruno Nanji, the man who will be dealing out your punishment," and with that said, he thrust upwards harshly against the crucified Jinchuriki. His beak piercing through his sphincter and forcing its way up his rectum, blood immediately started dripping from the forceful entry. Naruto had his eyes wide open as he screamed in newfound pain and agony as the man proceeded to rape his asshole. His rough and brutish thrusts only served to rub his insides raw. He couldn't hold back his tears any longer as they started to flow from the utter pain and humiliation of having his ass raped by his pursuers. Naruto cried out again and again with each thrust inside him, but his cries went unheard as the other men simply stood there jacking off. Eventually he could feel the leader tensing before he felt a warm sticky substance fill up his rectum. The feeling was horrid and he felt like throwing up. As the man pulled out, Naruto thought that it was over but was soon proven wrong as another man thrust in savagely. And so it went on and on, his body used as a coom dumpster for his attackers' rage and lust. The group of men just plowed into him like a cheap used street whore, their ejaculations filling his bowels and causing him to throw up more than once. As a finale, they all gathered around him and sprayed their musty seed all over his battered body and face. Over. The rough treatment had caused the katanas to slide further upwards, drawing a bloody line from their initial point on the wrists all the way up to the middle of his palm. A mixture of blood, shit and coom dripped out of his stretched rectum and onto the ground below him, where the rain quickly washed it away. Naruto couldn't scream anymore, his voice having given out somewhere between the last two men. His head tilted down so they couldn't see the tears of shame that ran down his face, his mind barely holding on and his thoughts taking a turn for the worst. "I'm sick of living, all that's waiting for me is more pain and humiliation. I wish they would just end it, already kill me and be done with it." A hand roughly grabbed his face and brought it up, his dull cerulean eyes stared at Nanji. A wicked grin was set on his face, a grin that told the Jinchuriki that his pain was not over yet. "Wishing for death already, demon, I can see it in your eyes, but too bad. You still have yet to pay for all the lives that were lost during your rampage," Nanji hissed as he held up a kunai and inspected it. "I believe that you barely felt these weapons when you were in your demon form, QB. let's see what the difference is now. A slash and a silent scream, a long gash across the young boy's chest. Another man came up with a katana and plunged it through both of Naruto's feet and into the wall. He then pulled out a kunai of his own. "Demon, you took my wife from me. She was in the hospital about to give birth to our son, and you killed them. You took away one of my eyes." The man threw back his hood to reveal a close-shaven head with black hair and an eye patch over his right eye. "Let's see how you like it to lose both of yours." Grabbing him roughly by his damp blonde locks, the man wasted no time in stabbing the kunai repeatedly into both of Naruto's eye sockets. Maniacal laughter escaping his throat as he stabbed, twisted and gouged out the remains of the eyeballs. Naruto's body arching against its restraints as it was wrecked with pain, his vision was gone, but he could hear the sound of the men laughing away at his pitiful state. "To do this to a child so young and innocent, and humans dare claim me a demon." The voice of the warmth, it was back again. Not wanting it to leave him alone, the young child tried to communicate with it. "Don't leave me. Child, you can hear my voice." The voice sounded surprised. "Yes, you are the warmth that always heals me and makes me feel safe. Are you an angel that has come to take me away?" QB was surprised by the child's ability to form coherent sentences at his age, though supposing who both his parents were then it was not much of a surprise. He closed his crimson eyes as he frowned slightly at the question. "No, child. I am as far away from an angel as his darkness is from light." Oh, Naruto sounded disappointed. His brain having already shut out all the pain and mutilations being applied onto his body by the men, all he cared about was conversing with the voice that had healed him whenever he was injured. "Tell me, child, why do you not fight back against them? I know that you have been training in secret to prepare for your first year at the academy. If I were to fight back I would just get into more trouble and they would use it as another reason to attack me." I tried to ignore them, but they continue to hit me and call me a demon voice and tell me what did I do. "Child, you can call me Kurama. And you have done nothing wrong. Humans are disgusting little creatures. They fear those that are stronger yet lord over those that are weaker. They claim to be your friend, yet they spread whispers behind your back. They claim they want peace, yet all they know is war. Humans are petty, easy to get jealous over the littlest things. Jealousy leads to anger, anger leads to hate, and hatred is what gave birth to me. And what are you, Kurama-san? I am the embodiment of all their sins. My personality was given form by the hatred of this world. Whenever there is hatred and malice my power grows stronger, child. I am known as the QB no Yoko. So the Yondaime couldn't defeat you after all. That means he must have sealed you into me." Naruto slowly put the pieces of the puzzle together, his gifted brain quickly filling in the blanks. "That is correct, child. Then am I not human too? Why are you helping me? Why heal my injuries? You are beyond a normal human. This will take a long time to explain, and I fear your body may not last. So I shall pull your consciousness into the mindscape where time passes slower." As the final words were said, Naruto felt a tugging sensation and surrendered himself to it. Blinking suddenly, he realized that his eyes were back to normal, and a quick check of his body confirmed that no wounds remained. Taking in his surroundings, he noted that he was in some kind of sewer with pipes running around the walls and ceiling. He noticed that several of the pipes were broken and blue liquid was running out of them. The walls and ceiling were covered with cracks and were starting to fall apart. This sewer represents your mind. As you can see, it's not in very good shape. The leaking pipes are your chakra pathways that have been severed by the humans. Naruto turned to face the voice and was greeted by a pair of fearsome glowing crimson eyes behind a large iron gate. It appeared to be held close by a small parchment of paper with a kanji written on it. "Kurama-san." "Yes, that is my name. Now you shall remain quiet until I am finished explaining. You may ask whatever questions that you may have after I am done. Do you understand?" Kurama growled. The blonde gave a small nod in understanding. "The first thing that you should know of is your parentage. Your father was the bastard Yondaime that sealed me in here, and your mother is Uzumaki Kushina. She was my previous host. So now to explain what I meant earlier, you are not human, at least not entirely. Since you were conceived when I was sealed in your mother, some of my Yauki was siphoned off by the seal and used in the creation of your embryo. Basically it means I am as much your parent as the two flesh bags were. It also means that you are part demon, a Hanyu, half demon if you will." At this said, Naruto was reeling with all the revelations that were just revealed to his young mind. The Yondaime was his father, his mother the previous prison of the QB a parent to him, and him being a Hanyu. Unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, your latent demonic blood has yet to awaken, which is why you hadn't developed anything beyond your whisker marks. Once your demonic blood kicks in, you will cease to be a Hanyu, as it will completely wipe every trace of human DNA from your system, thus rendering you a true demon, most likely a Yoko, demon fox, since my power runs through your veins. You may ask your questions now." Kurama sat back on his haunches as he waited for the young Jinchuriki to process everything. "When will my demonic blood take effect?" "Not soon enough, I'm afraid. Originally it was supposed to be when you hit 18 years old, but with the amount of Yaki that I kept pumping to heal you over the past 6 years, I would say when you reach 12. Needless to say that is too far away. The only way for you to survive tonight is if I forcefully transcend you myself. Hashirama trailed off as he leaned his snout down, his face on level with Naruto's now. However, in doing so I will cease to exist, as all I am is but power. My power shall become yours, all my knowledge and skills will be yours. In layman terms, Uzumaki Naruto shall become the new QB, my successor, in a manner of speaking. Your offer is generous, Kurama-san, too generous. There has to be something in it for you, am I right? Naruto asked suspiciously, getting a grin from the fox. You have a good head on your shoulders, child. Yes, I do require something from you, but I believe that this will be to your liking as well. As the original QB and part father, I charge you, my heir, as the new QB to reshape this world as you see fit. Make it so that innocents will not have to suffer anymore, make it so that no children shall have to suffer the same fate you have. I have lived long and personally have grown tired of hatred and chaos. It was amusing at first, but now it bores me. You want me to change the world by myself? Naruto looked down at his bare hands, as if trying to imagine crushing a village with them. The thought was exhilarating. Child, you underestimate my power, not to say that you can't seek out allies either. People who have the same mindset as you, people who have suffered as you have, they shall become worthy allies because they know the pain. Yes, only through suffering what I have will the world understand. The people in this village live joyously as I suffer in silence. They have lived in ignorance for far too long. I will make sure they know true pain. That's the idea, child. Now prepare to accept my power. Crimson tendrils of Yaki snaked out of the cage and slithered their way over to the stationary Naruto. The energy felt warm and comforting as it embraced him. The boiling Yaki cloak engulfed him like a second skin of crimson energy. He felt it probe into every pore of his body and welcomed it as it flowed through his blood. Back in the real world. The men were gathered in a semicircle around the crucified body. It was in horrible shape, to say the least. They had cut and stabbed almost every inch of his body. His tongue was punctured with a kunai and left hanging out. A large gash had been cut across the lower half of his torso, and they dug his intestines out and dropped them all over the ground. A gruesome sight indeed. Looks like the demon's dead already, one of the men grunted in annoyance, having wanted to torture it some more. I guess so. Looks like our job here is done. Let's go home and celebrate, guys. Nanji laughed as the other men cheered. They turned around to leave and took 2 steps before a small cough was heard. It was barely audible above the pouring rain and roaring thunder, but they still heard it. They spun around and saw Naruto coughing out blood as his body shook. A low wheezing sound could be heard. After a few moments they realized what it was. The child was laughing, not a happy laugh or an insane laugh, but a dark rising chuckle. His head tilted up and gazed at them with its bloody empty eye sockets. The sight unnerved them slightly. Their eyes widened when they noticed tendrils of red Yaki bubbling out from his body and ripped the katanas free, allowing the body to fall onto the entrails-covered ground. They watched horrified as the same energy flowed onto the discarded intestinal tract and it slowly pulled it back inside his body, the wound slowly sizzling shut as if it were never there to begin with. The same dark chuckle still slowly rising as the boy pushed himself up of the ground, all his wounds healing at an extraordinary rate. The blood mixing with the Yaki turned it into a deep opaque red that covered Naruto from head to toe, forming a cocoon of dense red energy around him and shielding his body from view. The 5 men stared at the egg-like object dumbly before one of them growled and charged it with a shout, his katana drawn and ready to deliver the final blow. Unfortunately for him, that was not to happen. Several crimson-clawed hands burst out from the shell and impaled him from the front and exited through the back. In each grasp was a different organ. The hands squeezed and the organs burst, the Yaki hands dispersed, and the corpse fell onto the ground with a wet plop. The Yaki cocoon dispersed as well to reveal a rather intimidating sight, at least to the remaining attackers it was. Now standing at a height of 1.8 meters, Naruto chuckled as he popped his stiff joints before glaring at the men. He now had a lean athletic build, his skin had a darker tan than before, his whisker marks had deepened, fangs could be seen as he grinned at them, his hair had grown until it shadowed his eyes slightly, but the most glaring, pun not intended, change was his eyes. The once sky blue eyes were now a glowing crimson red, with a black slitted pupil right down the center. One man decided to run for it at that moment, something that Naruto did not let happen. He stomped on the ground and a giant slab of earth rose at the entranceway, completely sealing off the alley from the street beyond. The man was a civilian, so he couldn't surface walk his way out, thus resorted to hacking away at the wall with his kunai. The 3 remaining ones drew weapons from their cloaks, simple-looking tantos by the looks of them. "Can't let any of you escape now, the fun's only beginning after all." Naruto grinned as rain poured down around the 4, lightning flash across the sky, and as it disappeared so did the blonde. He appeared in the middle of their rough formation and kicked Nanji to the side, where he impacted against a wall and slid to the ground. Naruto chose to concentrate on the eye patch wearing guy as he was the only real significant threat at that moment. The other civilian charged with the tanto only to get punched in the face, breaking his nose and a couple of teeth as well. The crimson Yaki hand leapt from his back and grabbed a hold of the downward slash that had been aimed at his back. Eye patch stared dumbstruck that his attack had been blocked. "Come on Mr. Pirate, put your back into it," Naruto mocked the shinobi, who cried out in fury and pulled out another kunai and stabbed it towards the blonde. Only to have it blocked by another Yaki hand, he was then hit by an uppercut from a third hand that sent him arsing into the air. Naruto spun and nailed him right in the sternum with a powerful roundhouse kick as he fell, sending him crashing into a pile of crates by the wall. The new QB picked up the drop tanto and swung it around in a precise arc, successfully splitting the attacker, the one he had punched, in half by the waist, then slicing downwards and separating him vertically. He then kicked the body, sending 4 pieces in 4 directions. The crash and a groan signified that eye patch was up and about again. A Yaki hand shot forth and grabbed him by the head and yanked him forward. Eye patch flew and gasped out when his throat impacted against Naruto's hand, his clawed fingers closing around the neck in a vice-like grip. He was brought face to face with a pair of rage-filled crimson eyes. "Beating, mutilating and raping a child, I'm sure your wife and baby must be proud of you wherever they are." Naruto spat in his face before shoving a Yaki hand down his throat, gripped his spinal column and ripped it out through his mouth, and then impaled him through the head with it. Flinging the body to the side, he turned around to see Nanji coming around and the man still hacking away at the wall. Nanji squeaked out in fear when he noticed the fearsome visage of Naruto approaching him. He scrambled to get away, but a tendril of Yaki wrapped around his ankle and hefted him into the air. The blonde scoffed when he smelt that the man had soiled himself in fear as he hung upside down. He locked his crimson eyes with his torturer's green ones. "You shall suffer long and hard for what you have done to me." Naruto dug his claws into the man's eye sockets and crushed both his eyeballs before forming a small sphere of Yaki in his palm. "In my hand I hold a sphere of Yaki. I increase its corrosive property so that it will eat away at organic substances in joy." But that said, Naruto shoved the sphere into the man's mouth. Watching with a crooked smile as the man writhed in agony as the Yaki consumed him from the inside out, the corrosiveness eating away at his internal organs and liquefying them. Leaving the man to his pain, he strode up to the last struggling attacker that had curled into a ball by the earth wall. "You are the lucky one, I shall spare you tonight." Spread the word to the village. "Uzumaki Naruto is no more, for I am just Naruto, the Nickname QB. Don't think you'll be leaving here scot-free though. Kitsune bye. Mesu, Foxfire. Scalpel." Naruto formed a blazing bluish-white flame in his hand before it morphed into a scalp-like shape. He then proceeded to slice off all the man's limbs. Leaving him as a body with a head, the intense flames already cauterizing the wounds when it sliced through, thus preventing the man from dying of blood loss. A soft stomp and the wall of earth receded back into the ground, the rain still pouring heavily upon the village, as if heaven itself were weeping for the loss of what could have been its brightest light. The rain splashed against Naruto's face as he looked up at the dark sky, water running down his face and mixing with his tears as he remembered the parting words of Kurama. "This is the end of the road for me, so go out there and shake the world to its foundations. Go and raise hell, my son." Naruto let his demonic power recede as his voice changed into a somewhat lighter quality. "I promise Tusan, I will mold this world into a perfect one, a perfect world that I swear." And with another flash of lightning and crash of thunder, he was gone. Next day after the storm had passed, civilians all whispered to each other and glanced at the pair of chunins that were directing traffic away from the alleyway, all of them wondering what was going on in there. "I don't care who, but someone better give me a report on the situation right now." The Sandaime Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, growled as he glared at the disturbing scene before him. He was busy enjoying his sleep when the morning Anbu patrol had turned up at his doorstep and informed him of the bloody murder scene in the alleyway. He had quickly pulled on his robes and followed them. The sight that had greeted him was indeed disturbing to say the least. The only survivor had all his limbs removed and the wounds burned shut. The man had immediately been carried off to the hospital, where he would be stabilizing before they could question him on the event. One man that had been confirmed as Haruno Nanji, husband to Councilwoman Haruno Saki, had literally fallen apart when the medical shinobi tried to shift him. The diagnosis was apparently some form of flesh-eating virus. The medics had taken the remains away to study them. The man that had been stabbed through the face by his own spinal column had been identified as Nakamura Shinji, a retired shinobi who had lost his family and right eye during the QB attack. Medics managed to identify the fourth person by placing the split head back together. He was the brother of a wealthy merchant that had died during the QB's attack 6 years ago. The last man couldn't be identified at all. In place of his face was just a big hole. Further investigation showed that the most likely conclusion was that someone or something had punched straight clean through his face, destroying his brain in the process. This was then repeated at various points on the body including the heart, the lungs and his groin. I want all these bodies in the autopsy room and expect a report on my desk by lunchtime today. Also get this damned mess cleaned up. Anbu members Kuma and Nico, please inform the families of the deceased, that will be all. The Sandai Ami ordered before disappearing in a swirl of leaves. Hokage's office. I'm seriously getting too old for these kinds of shit. An attack within the village's own walls. Hiruzen sighed as he ignited his pipe with a small Kaiten jutsu and took a puff. He massaged his wrinkled temples as he read through the files of the identified corpses. The main point was that all of them had lost a family member in the Kyuubi attack. He took another puff of his pipe as he stood up from his seat and looked down at the village through the window, his thoughts running a mile a minute as he tried to figure the case out. All of them lost something in the Kyuubi attack. Naruto missing from his apartment, according to Nico's report. Could they have attacked him during the storm? That doesn't explain how they are all dead, and Naruto being nowhere in sight. There's too many damned variables right now. I guess we just have to wait for the survivor to awaken so we can question him. He looked down at the manila folder in his hand with the words classified stamped across it, yet another important and difficult choice for him. Opening the folder, he slid out the stack of papers and scanned through their contents briefly. The council has approved of the final decision to wipe out the Uchiha clan for attempted betrayal. To lose such a strong and prominent clan, it will weaken Konoha greatly. However, Hiruzen trailed off in thought before hitting the intercom on his desk. Sayori, please send a messenger hawk to Uchiha Itachi and have him report to my office immediately. Right away, Sandai Ami-sama. The aged village leader sat back down in his chair as he waited for the prodigy of the Uchiha clan to arrive, which happened a few minutes later when the wind kicked up in his office slightly. Itachi appeared crouched to the floor in his full Anbu gear, with his weasel mask clipped to his side, the standard issue tanto attached to his back as well. Reporting as you ordered, Hokage-sama, he said in his usual monotone voice. You may rise. Itachi, please inform me of the recent happenings of the coup. Hiruzen gestured for him to stand with his right hand. Itachi gave a small nod before relaying the information. My father has been organizing more secret meetings in the past week. I fear that the time of the coup is fast approaching. Also, Shisui had found out about my spying, and I had to dispose of him, his emotionless composure not breaking once, even as he admitted to killing off his best friend. Very good, Itachi, you are indeed a fine shinobi. That is why I am about to hand you this S-class mission. I won't beat around the bush. This mission is for you to wipe out the entirety of the Uchiha clan. I'm sorry, Itachi, as it is with a heavy heart that I order this as well, but everyone has agreed that this is for the best, since the Uchiha clan in general has gotten quite arrogant in the past few years. The Sandai Ami stood up from his seat and placed a hand on the young prodigy's shoulder. Itachi read through the mission details before looking the Sandai Ami in the eye. Everyone, Hokage-sama. Even the women and the children that played no part in the upcoming coup. What about my mother and younger brother, are they to be killed too? Hiruzen noted this down in his mind, that his top Anbu captain was not as emotionless as he seemed. I'm sorry, Itachi, but we can't run the risk of missing out on any of the coup members. Who knows what information they could divulge to the enemy if they escaped, plus it would also mean the Sharingan falling into enemy hands. You wouldn't want that to happen, would you? No, Hokage-sama, Itachi replied with his fists clenched ever so slightly. However, we don't want to lose the Sharingan either, so I will change your order slightly. You leave your brother alive, he shall be the Uchiha clan's saving grace, and repopulate the village with the Sharingan when he is older. Hiruzen smiled as he saw the Anbu captain let out a small sigh of genuine relief. Arigato, Hokage-sama, you have no idea how much that means to me. That means his hatred will be directed onto you, his purpose in life would be to hunt you down and kill you. Can you live with that? Can you bear that burden? I would already be an S-class missing nin after the mission. It is better for him to blame me than for him to hate the village that I love. I believe that the note at the bottom by Jiraiya-sama wants me to infiltrate the organization known as Akatsuki to spy on their members and objectives. All we have found out about them is that they are a mercenary group that has started recruiting S-class missing nins. We don't know their numbers, their members or their objectives. Those are your primary concerns, as well as relaying back up-to-date reports on their weekly activities, understand? Hi, Hokage-sama. Itachi saluted before clipping the weasel mask onto his face. The mission is to be carried out tonight, Weasel. I wish you the best of luck and that the will of fire continues to burn brightly in your soul. The Hokage saluted his Anbu captain, who gave a small nod before disappearing in a swirl of leaves. Sarutobi Hiruzen sighed as he sat back down with his head in his hands, so many things happening in the span of a few days. First the village in Chiriki goes missing, the brutal murder scene, and now the destruction of the Uchiha clan. Doing the right thing be damned, all he wanted to do now was to retire. His eyes drifted to two framed pictures on his desk. The first one was of him and his wife Bawako before the Kyuubi attack, while the second one was of him and Naruto a week before his disappearance. He once again fought the rising sadness that surfaced whenever he was reminded of his deceased wife. A hand reached out and placed the picture face down on the desk. Couldn't afford to lose himself in his memories, he had a missing weapon to find. On Hagakure streets. The store owner, a man that looked to be in his 40s, looked up from his magazine when he heard the entrance bell of his shop jingle as the door was opened. He observed the person who stepped in. The man appeared to be rather young and was dressed in a simple black cloak. It was when he reached the face that he let out a rather audible gasp. The distinctive whisker-like markings on the face only belonged to one person in the village. "Get out of my store, we don't serve your kind here." The man spat harshly at the revealed Naruto, who scowled and strode up to the man and pulled him across the counter by his collar. "You will shut the fuck up and let me get what I want, or I will make sure every inch of this store will be dyed red by your blood, understand?" Naruto emphasized the last word by growling in his demonic tone, making the man wet his pants as he nodded furiously. He dropped the man carelessly onto the counter and browsed through the shinobi store, picking out clothes and weapons, then changed on the spot. He was now dressed in a simple black hoodie with red flames licking the edges, a pair of black standard-issue shinobi pants. Black bandages were wound around his hands and arms, but leaving his fingers exposed, and to top it all off, a pair of elegant crimson wakizashi strapped to his back. The man was still cowering behind the counter as Naruto hefted him up by his throat. "Unfortunately, I can't let you remember my being here." "Wait. I promise I won't tell anyone, not even if Hokage-sama asks me himself," the man pleaded. "Nope, sorry, can't risk it. Fuden. Sanso Ketsum, wind release. Oxygen deprivation," Naruto whispered with a hand over the store owner's face. A thin trail of visible air flowed out of the man's nose and mouth as he drew his hand back. A few seconds later and the man fell limp within his grasp, dead from having all the oxygen in his body removed. Letting the body drop to the floor, Naruto dusted his hands off with a smirk. "See, like I said, not a single blood stain in your store." He let out a small snort of laughter before exiting the store. Later that evening. Itachi gazed down emotionlessly at the Uchiha district below him from his post on the tallest building in the area, his weasel mask clipped to his belt as the wind blew through his raven locks. "The setting is perfect. Father has planned a meeting in half an hour's time, so all the members of the Uchiha clan should be here preparing. Sasuke's class ends a little later than usual today, and I should be done by the time he returns," he thought to himself as he unconsciously activated his Sharingan in preparation for the mission. All was according to plan, and thus he was surprised when a figure in a black hoodie with a pair of wakizashi landed next to him. The person had the hood pulled over his head, so Itachi couldn't tell who it was. "Anbu-san, what might you be doing up here by yourself?" the figure asked as he sat on the edge of the building, letting his legs dangle off the edge. "It is of no concern to you, citizen. Please vacate the Uchiha clan grounds immediately, or I would be forced to remove you," Itachi informed the stranger. "That sounds highly suspicious, Anbu-san, so what are you really doing up here?" the hooded man asked again, seemingly disregarding the Anbu captain's earlier response. Itachi realized he couldn't waste any more time, so he decided on the quickest route, just kill the man as well. "If you must know, I am about to massacre the entire Uchiha clan, but now that I told you, I have to kill you as well." Itachi glared at the stranger with his Sharingan and drew his Tanto, causing the figure to leap to his feet. "Oh, let me offer my help to you then. The village is better off without this scumbag clan anyway, no offense to you of course." Of all the replies Itachi could have gotten, this was the only one that left him flabbergasted. This stranger with obvious shinobi training had appeared out of nowhere and offered to take part in the massacre. He was usually more cautious about trusting others, but he was running out of time. "Alright, since you offered, you sweep the ground from the entrance to the west and I'll head east, then we meet back up at the north point, make sure you get everyone." Itachi vanished from his spot in his signature Croshunshin, body flicker. The figure pulled the hood back to reveal Naruto, who was grinning from ear to ear. What a perfect opportunity. A chance to wipe out Toussaint's most hated clan of the face of the world. It must be my lucky day, he thought to himself before dropping down from his perch and landing between two Uchiha clan members. "Hey you, what are you doing here?" the first guard shouted in alarm as the second one pulled out a kunai in an offensive stance. Both of them had their Sharingan active. "Evening boys, let's get wild," Naruto growled out as he pulled on his demonic power whilst grabbing both his wakizashi and cutting down both guards in a flash. He used one of the blades to slice a gash along his left arm. The wound closed almost instantly, but a few drops of blood had landed on the ground already. "Aibunshin no jutsu, blood clone technique," Naruto muttered as a visible trail of crimson yauki flowed into the small droplets of blood on the ground. A moment later and he was staring at an exact copy of himself without the weapons. "You know your orders, don't let anyone escape." The clone nodded before taking off in the direction of the entrance to the clan grounds. As soon as the clone ran out of sight, several loud shouts of Kaiten. "Dikaku no jutsu, fire release." Grand Fireball technique. Were heard to the east. Naruto peered in that direction to see multiple buildings on fire and smirked. Looks like my partner has gotten started, so how about we get this show on the road, boys? Naruto asked as he turned around to see Uchiha clan members running out of their homes with weapons drawn. He licked his lips as he dashed forward with both wakizashi at the ready, twirling and slashing in a deadly yet elegant dance of death. The cry of pain was silenced as the man's head was liberated from his body in a single cut, a fountain of blood gushed out from the neck and rained over the area. Naruto kicked the impaled corpse of one Uchiha of his blade before flicking it clean. He had disposed of the Sharingan-wielding ninjas in his immediate vicinity, time to clear the houses. Damn, there sure are a lot of houses, let's speed this up then Doten. Chijmayaku no Jutsu, Earth Release. Ground Pulse Technique. Naruto placed a palm against the dirt floor of the street, his earth-manipulated Yaki pulsing out into the surrounding area like a form of natural radar. Feeding back to him a grainy image of the surrounding homes, marking out which ones had living targets inside. With the targets in mind, Naruto dusted his hands off and grasped his swords once more. And with a wide grin on his face, he set out to resume the massacre of the once great Uchiha clan. An hour later. Naruto arrived at the north point of the Uchiha compound to find Itachi already waiting for him, both their outfits only suffering minimal blood splatter from the victims and no injuries of their own. Total body count on my side is 250. He told his silent partner, who nodded in acknowledgement. And on my side is 185, which makes up the entirety of the Uchiha clan excluding me. Our job here is done. Itachi cleaned his bloody tanto and sheathed it, internally glad that he hadn't run into Sasuke, so he lied about the total numbers. A pleasure to help, so what plans do you have? The blonde-haired demon asked in curiosity, couldn't hurt to have an early ally. Of course I will be leaving the village and will be pronounced a missing nin. From there I will see where life takes me. How about you, stranger-san? You have yet to even offer me your name. Ahaha, you may have heard of me or who I was. My name is Naruto, formerly known as Uzumaki Naruto, the ex-Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko. Naruto laughed at Itachi's shocked expression when he flipped his hood back, revealing his matured face. However, there was one main concern on Itachi's mind at the present. Ex-Jinchuriki? Does that mean? Yes and no. The Kyuubi is indeed free from his prison, but not the Kyuubi that you all know of. The old Kyuubi is no more. His powers are now mine to wield, for I am Naruto, the Nidaime Kyuubi no Yoko. Naruto released his fox-like appendages at the end of his statement, his ears turned into a pair of red fox ears above his head and 9 bushy red fox tails fanned out behind him. Itachi didn't know whether to run and inform the Sandaime or crap his pants at the sight, so he settled for doing what he did best, being emotionless. No running around screaming. No attacking me whilst screaming, died demon. The fox demon asked in amusement. It would be illogical to do anything in your presence. If you really are the new Kyuubi, that means you could easily kill me if I were to attempt anything. Smart move, human. Naruto smirked before grabbing Itachi by the shoulder, and the both of them vanished in a plume of fire just as the Anbu squad arrived at their location. I could have sworn I sensed 2 presences here, the tracker of the squad muttered. Never mind that now, spread out and try to search for survivors other than the clan head's younger son. The squad captain ordered. The highly trained ninja saluted and leapt away in different directions. With Naruto and Itachi. The duo appeared in the middle of the woods. Naruto watched impassively as the ex-Anbu captain stumbled against a nearby tree and started retching. Suck it up, you're an Anbu captain, I know you've been through worse than just a little shunshin nausea. Naruto told him, his voice having reverted back after he had withdrawn his demonic powers. Where have you taken us? Itachi asked as he wiped the residue from his lips and spat it onto the forest floor. Just a little outside Konoha. I'll keep this short and simple as I believe Anbu sweeper teams will be dispatched soon to comb the area for us. I want you to join me as an ally. I have great plans for the elemental nations, plans that would take too long to elaborate on now, so I leave you with this. Imagine a world where the innocents don't have to suffer, a world where everything was fair. Give it some thought and have an answer ready the next time we meet. Itachi watched as the blonde leapt away through the trees and decided to get a move on himself. All the while thoughts were running through his head at all the information he had just learned. I have to inform the Sandaime in my next report as soon as possible. With Naruto. The Nidaime Kyuubi no Yoko had booked a room in an inn of a town near the border of Kase no Kuni, Land of Wind, and had just finished taking a shower. He stepped out with a towel around his waist as he walked over to a small desk. On the desk was a map he had purchased from a convenience store along the way. It was a map of the elemental nations. Since I'm already near the border of Kase no Kuni, I might as well drop in on Sunagakure no Sado, Hidden Sand Village, and check up on that insane Tanuki demon and whoever his container is at this moment in time. Maybe I can recruit his Jinchuriki into helping me out. Naruto pondered the thought with a grin as he fell backwards onto the bed. The reign of chaos and hatred will come to an end. The world shall know true fear and be united under my rule, the reign of darkness. Tsurutobi Hiruzen, Sande Ami Hokage of Konohagakure no Sato, the proclaimed professor and Kami no Shinobi, god of shinobi, was no simple pushover. He had ruled over the village as an exceptional leader from his initiation as a young shinobi up till his passing of the mantle of Tanamikaze Minato, before once again claiming the seat after his successor had died defending the village against the mighty Kyuubi no Yoko. That said, it would take a lot to phase a tough old war veteran like him, but the report he had received from the torture and interrogation department stunned him. The lone survivor had awoken during the middle of the night screaming and kicking about demons and glowing red eyes. The man had been sedated and brought to the T&I building where Yamanaka Inoichi was called in. The clan head of the mind-walking clan performed the jutsu and entered the victim's mind, scouring his memories of that night. Thus Marino Ibiki and his partner Mitarashi Anko were shocked when the clan head had returned to his body and immediately heaved up his breakfast onto the steel floor. They were both worried and curious about what could have affected the veteran mind-walker so badly. They gave the man some space as he recomposed himself. Ibiki was disgusted and enraged by what Inoichi had discovered. His hand had accidentally crushed a clipboard in his grasp as he heard the report. The usually sadistic and cheerful Anko had broken down into tears when she heard about how much the boy had suffered. Not even her childhood had been as bad as that. They were truly stunned to silence at the next part of the report. The sweet and caring child had turned into the new Kyuubi. Contemplating just how broken he was after they were done with him, I would have accepted the damned fox's power and killed them all as well. Anko growled as she slammed a kunai into the table, wiping her eyes with the sleeve of her tan trench coat. I agree with Anko's assessment. It's not too surprising once you consider how broken he must have been from the assault. Definitely broken enough to accept whatever the Kyuubi had propositioned to him, which is the most logical explanation at the moment. Ibiki concluded as Inoichi nodded in agreement. Are you able to acquire us an image of the new Naruto? We need to be able to identify him if we are to track him down. I will be able to project the image from his mind for you to take a picture of, is that alright? Inoichi asked. That would suffice, thanks in advance Inoichi. Ibiki replied as he watched the pony-tailed blonde run through several hand seals and touch a finger to the man's temple. Yamanaka Hijutsu. Kyoku no Tmei, Yamanaka secret technique. Memory projection. After saying this, a fuzzy image of a person started appearing in front of the trio of interrogators. They waited for a moment as the memory image started to focus until Naruto in his new form stood before them, his glowing crimson eyes unnerving Ibiki a little. Anko's reaction was a little different. Holy kami. That little shrimp turned into this fair-looking sex Adonis. Anko gaped at the image with a noticeable blush on her face. Anko, could you close your mouth, and you appear to be drooling as well. Inoichi pointed out, getting a deadpan stare from the sadistic purple-haired Kinoichi. He looks freaking hot, those whisker marks gives him that fair-looking appeal. He was responsible for that gruesome slaughter fest of those bastards in the alleyway, why wouldn't I be drooling? He's the perfect man. Anko jabbed a finger at the image, getting sweat drops from the other two conscious people in the room. Somewhere else, Naruto sneezed. Anko's preferences aside. I'll pass the image on to Hokage-sama, as well as the Anbu and Hunter Nin divisions, that way we would increase our chances of finding him. Onto another matter, have we any leads onto the identities of the Uchiha massacre? Ibiki asked as he picked up a pile of reports. Anko twirled the kunai as she replied, yeah we do, apparently the Anbu managed to find one of the Uchiha barely clinging on to his life at the scene. The man claimed that it was Uchiha Itachi who did it. He also said that he had sensed another strong presence within the clan grounds, so it would be wise to assume that Itachi had a partner. Further proof showed that Itachi did not report in for his Anbu duties this morning and could not be found anywhere within Konoha's walls, which leads us to believe that he and his partner have fled the village and most likely the country as well. Inoichi added his input. And the witness? Ibiki asked. Ed. The Yamanaka clan head replied simply. So we have Uchiha Itachi, an ex-Anbu captain that somehow went completely bonkers and decided that last night was a good night to randomly massacre his clan. I smell something fishy here, Ibiki growled in frustration as the events didn't add up in his mind. I know what you mean. Itachi was always a loyal and upright young man. He was also an excellent captain to his Anbu squad. There is probably some hidden motive or bigger plan behind the massacre. The second perpetrator of the massacre also left no clues behind, except that the Uchihas on his side were killed in more brutal ways than the others. Inoichi read aloud from a report in his hand, causing a reaction out of Anko. More brutal? Exactly how more brutal was it? Anko had a sadistic gleam in her eye as she relayed her question. Truth be told, she had never liked the clan of thieves and their so-called special eyes, with only a few exceptions, such as the clan head's wife Mikoto. Well, one of the Uchiha Jounin was found in 9 different pieces, another was found with multiple kunai sticking out of his head. Let's just say there are many innovative methods of death involved in this report. Inoichi shivered as he scanned through some of the more gruesome kills. Well, not much we can do now both of you sit your asses down and help me fill out all this damned paperwork. Ibiki shouted as he grew a tick mark on his bandana-covered head, seeing as he was the only one filling out the sheets of paper. Anko and Inoichi both let out a sigh as they plopped down onto a chair each, grabbed a piece of paper and started filling out the details. The Nohe General Hospital. Sarutobi Hiruzen sighed as he was stared down by the only remaining Uchiha left in the village, the 6-year-old Uchiha Sasuke. The raven-haired boy had made his way home after a late day at the academy and panicked when he saw smoke rising from the Uchiha district. Upon reaching the entrance, he was shocked and horrified to find the streets littered with the dead bodies of his fellow clan members. Sasuke had then sprinted all the way to his house to check on his parents, only for him to scream and faint when he saw the dead bodies of his parents on the floor. Bullshit. The Sandaime blinked at the response he had received from the 6-year-old child. I'm sorry, what did? Bullshit. I don't believe that Itachi Nai would have killed everyone, he is a good person. Sasuke stated adamantly, his onyx eyes daring the elder man to say otherwise. The only witness of the scene said that it was Itachi who did it, he also didn't turn up for his Anbu duties today. Hiruzen explained to the stubborn child calmly. Sasuke's face scrunched up as he thought before opening his mouth. You said there were 2 people, what if there was only one and the bad guy was able to make solid clones and transform them to look like my Nai-san? That was actually a pretty logical conclusion. Looks like Sasuke has the same genius gene in him that Itachi had, the Sandaime thought with a hidden grin, the thought of another Itachi-like prodigy clearly making his day. Well, young Sasuke, that still doesn't explain why Itachi didn't turn up for his duties today. But the bad guy could have captured him or forced him to do it. Sasuke shouted in defiance before huffing and crossing his arms over his chest. I don't care if you don't believe me, I will become the best shinobi, better than even Nai-san, and I will find him and ask him myself. That is a good dream, I will look forward to your progress, Sasuke. The Hokage said before leaving the hospital room. Sasuke drew his knees up to his chin and wrapped his arms around them, staring intently at the blank white hospital room wall in front of him. I will grow strong enough to confront Itachi Nai and to find out the real person behind my clan's death, that I swear. Meanwhile with Naruto. The blonde perspiring figure sneezed suddenly as he trekked through the deserts of Kase no Kuni, land of wind. He wiped his nose with the back of his hand and glared at the sun. Stupid country and its stupid desert, how do people even live in this stupid country? This is fucking bullshit. I'm a demon lord and yet I am forced to traverse this barren wasteland while enduring this blasted weather. Naruto growled as rivulets of sweat glistened on his feral face and bare upper torso, having torn his hoodie off a few miles back. His straw sandals leaving a trail of footprints on the desert sands as he trudged along, the blazing morning sun shining down on him. I better find a worth ally in Sunagakure no Sado, Hidden Sand Village, or I might just murder everyone in the village, if I can even find the Kami-forsaken village. He cried out to Sky in frustration. A few moments later and the sand beneath his feet started shifting slightly as a small tremor ran through the ground. He raised an eyebrow as he saw a lot of sand being pushed away from one spot. The sand parted as a giant worm-like creature with a razor-sharp teeth-filled maw rose up from the ground and kept rising and rising and rising. Naruto let out a low whistle as the creature towered over him at an impressive 3 stories, the remainder of its pinkish worm body still hidden under the shifting sands. Saliva dripped out of the open maw as it reared back slightly and released a shrill shriek, the sound causing the blonde-haired demon to fall to his knees, clutching his ears. Ah fuck. Stupid sensitive hearing. I swear it's both a gift and a curse at the same time. Naruto cursed as he stood back up only to dive to the side as the giant worm came barreling towards him, crashing its gaping maw into the spot where he just occupied. Springing to his feet quickly, he leaped backwards as the worm emerged directly under him and tried to devour him whole. Drawing on his demonic power, he placed both hands in front of him with palms facing outward and fingers splayed. Kitsune Bai. Nobi, Foxfire. Wildfire. The bowling ball-sized orb of blue flames flickered to life in front of his palms before exploding forward in a raging wave of blue flames, the searing kitsune flames turning the sand to glass as it roared across the ground. The giant worm screeched as it devoured a full stomach's worth of the fire as the remainder washed over it, cooking it on both the inside and the out at the same time. Naruto watched with an air of detachment as the worm wriggled its last remaining seconds of life out on the glastern sand, his crimson orbs observing the native creature. A slow clapping sound was heard from behind him. He looked over his shoulder to see Asuna Chunin with half of his face covered by a white cloth. You must indeed be an excellent shinobi to have defeated a Sakak no W Mu, Dune Worm, so easily, even Kazekage-sama has trouble dealing with those things. Hell, I have to cover the half of my face due to those wriggling bastards as well. The Chunin growled angrily. And who the hell are you? Naruto asked rudely. Oh, my name is Baki and I'm a Chunin of Tsunagakure no Sado. How about you, traveler? You can obviously hold your own in a fight, no doubt about it, yet I see no headband on you to mark your village allegiance. Baki stated as he scratched his exposed cheek in confusion. I am, as you said, a traveler. I had trained under a very strong teacher and father figure, but he has passed on into the next world. Already Naruto trailed off as he remembered Kurama and how he had sacrificed himself so that the blonde could change the world. I'm sorry to hear that. The Suna shinobi expressed his condolences as he shifted nervously in front of the other man. Well, I have to report back to Kazekage-sama now, so. Ah, so you're traveling back to Suna, excellent. Might I accompany you on your way back? You see, I have been trying to locate the village, but let's say I got sidetracked a little. He shrugged as the Chunin rubbed his chin. I don't see why not, though you have to check in with the entrance guards before you enter the village. I assume that you are able to keep up with my pace with your training. Naruto gave an affirmative nod before the two took off, leaving the charred corpse of the worm to rot in the blazing sun. Neither of them noticing the sand shifting once again as a strange Venus flytrap emerged from the ground, the jaws splitting open to reveal an equally strange face. The man's face appeared to be split in half vertically, with one side white in color and the other side black. His eyes were two yellow dots that gazed at the two disappearing set of footprints, then the roasted worm. We must report this newest development to Leader Sama immediately. I agree, let's get the fuck out of this stupid desert. The plant man spoke in an alternating voice before sinking back into the sand. Back in Konoha, Hokage's office. What the hell do you mean you lost Naruto? A loud voice boomed throughout the village. The owner of said voice was currently glaring down at the Sandaime, who was seated at his desk. Jiraiya, you will do well to remember who I am exactly and to address me with the proper respect that I deserve. The old Kage locked his steely gaze with that of the white-haired Sannin. Respect? What respect do you deserve for losing the child of the prophecy? He was Minato's son, the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko, and the fabled child of prophecy. Jiraiya slammed his hands down on the desk. Jiraiya, regardless of that, I am still Hokage of this village, and you will address me with respect or I can and will revoke your traveling privileges and reinstate you as a normal Jounin of Konoha. And I did not lose Naruto, he suddenly vanished on the night of the storm. Hiruzen growled back at the toad Sennin. Hokage-sama voice squeaked out from the door to his office. What? Both men thundered out as they swerved their heads to glare at the poor secretary at the door, who nearly wet herself in fright of the two angered S-rank shinobi. The report from the T&I division is here, she stammered as she put the stack of paper down on the desk before vanishing from the room in a burst of speed, terrified of staying in there for a moment longer. The Sandaime quickly read through the reports on the matter of their missing Jinchuriki, his wrinkled face growing paler and paler with each sentence that went by. Jiraiya beeped an eyebrow in confusion when he saw how pale the old Tsurutobi had gotten. He was pretty sure that he could give Orochimaru a run for his money in the paleness department at the moment. So what does it say? The spymaster asked impatiently, only to have the stack of papers thrust into his hands. He scanned through the report as his face did a perfect imitation of his sensei's reaction just before him, his hand shaking slightly as he finished it. Naruto contacted the QB earlier than we expected and accepted whatever promise of power that the demon had offered, Hiruzen muttered to himself as he held his head in his hands. And by the abilities he displayed, I'd say he has almost full control over the Bijk sealed inside him. Do you know how dangerous that makes him now? What happens if he joins an enemy village of Konoha? The results would be disastrous for us. Jiraiya stated with a hint of panic in his voice. Wait, we can still salvage this if we can somehow track Naruto down and bring him back here. I'm pretty sure we can convince him to stay in the village. If not, then we could always hand him over to Danzo and recondition him. Yes, that would work as well. Hiruzen whispered to himself, but the Sannin picked up on it easily enough. You can't be serious, that old Warhawk's methods are over the top and this is Minato's son we're talking about. Jiraiya exclaimed, not happy with the idea of handing off his deceased pupil's child to a power-hungry man. Do you have a better idea? At least under Danzo, he would be able to serve the village, just as his father would have wanted off him. Trust me when I say if there was another method, then I would change my mind. Unfortunately there isn't, and this is our best bet for now. I'll call an emergency shinobi meeting later and inform everyone to be on the lookout for Naruto. The Sandaime sighed before gesturing for Jiraiya to leave. The white-haired man scowled but did as he was told by opening the window and jumping out to the rooftop across the street, his wooden clog sounding as he leapt across the rooftops. With Naruto. The fox demon nearly sighed in relief when he passed through the shaded corridor that doubled as the entrance to Tsunagakure, glad to be finally out of the scorching heat. A few seconds later and he was cursing under his breath as he found that the corridor only lasted for so long before he was in the village of sand, which was completely exposed to the sun. How me damned son. How the hell does your village survive such absurd weather conditions? Baki, I swear that a few more hours in this heat and I just might drop dead from heatstroke, perhaps dehydration as well, Naruto asked the native shinobi, who let out a hearty laugh at the traveler's question. That just means that the people living in this village are tougher than the average bunch, wouldn't you say, Naruto-san? Baki winked at him, having acquired his name during their trip back to the village. After feeling this ridiculous heat, I wholeheartedly agree with you, Naruto deadpanned as he followed the Chunin until they reached the Kazekage building. Well, Naruto-san, I have to report to Kazekage-sama now. You could either wait for me and I would be glad to give you a tour around this village, or you could just go explore by yourself. Baki told him. I think I'll go ahead by myself then, don't want to impose on you any more than I already have. Naruto replied before waving the man off and walking down the street. The citizens of the village hidden in the sand were all tanned to a certain degree due to being under the sun almost their entire lives. Their clothing were either the bare minimal or made of thin material. Not that he was complaining or anything, he most certainly enjoyed the free look as he eyed the two scantily clad women that walked past him. His rather perverse grin dropped when he stumbled across the side of a playground in front of him. It wasn't the location that bothered him, but rather the events that were taking place. He had just seen a cute red-headed little girl of his former body's age try to return the ball to another child, but the children took one look at her and just ran off. Their whispers and mutterings of demon and devil child reaching Naruto's ears, a low growl escaped his throat before he managed to rein his anger in. Reaching out with his demonic senses, he could feel a secondary source of energy within the girl. Upon closer inspection, he realized that the young girl was the container of the relatively insane Shukaku, otherwise known as the Ichibi no Tanuki, one-tailed raccoon dog. Flashes of his own life invaded his mind as he saw tears gleam on the edges of her eyes. He sighed and slowly made his way over to her. I don't know what those brats' problems were, but I'll play with you if you want, Naruto offered to the small child in front of him, causing her to look at him in shock and surprise. You'll play with me? She asked in disbelief. Of course, how could anyone not want to play with such a beautiful young girl? My name is Naruto. How about you? He asked as he squatted down, putting him at eye level with the child. Konnichiwa Naruto-san, my name is Sabaku no Gaia. My father is the Yondaime Kazekage of this village, but he doesn't spend much time with me. Gaia whispered the last part sadly. Naruto's eyes widened at that detail. This girl was the daughter of the leader of this village. Taking a closer look, he went over her appearance once more. Dressed in a simple sand-colored tunic and black pants, her green eyes ringed by the trademark tanuki-like black eye rings and shoulder-length red hair. Well, Gaia-chan, what about your mother or siblings or friends? He questioned the young Jinchuriki, already half expecting the answers. My mom, she died during my birth. Tamari-ni tries to spend time with me, but her training with Ebism-sama keeps her busy most of the time, same with Kankuro-nai, as he is busy learning about puppets from Chiyo-sama. As for friends, you already saw how everyone runs away from me. Gaia sniffled slightly as she thought about how alone she was in the village. So nobody cares for you at all inside the village? Naruto withheld the rising anger from his voice. She was just like him. Well, there is Uncle Yashimaru, he takes care of me and spends his free time with me. He said that he was my mom's brother, so he should look after me. She replied. I see, then how about I become your first friend then, Gaia-chan? Would you like that? Gaia's eyes widened in surprise. You would really be my friend? Even though they call me a demon? Of course, why would anyone call you a demon? Naruto asked, feigning confusion. Dad told me that the Ichibi no Tanuki is sealed inside me. The demon will take control of me if I fall asleep, so I have not slept since I was born, also it allows me to do this. Gaia raised a small hand and a pillar of sand followed her movement. I think that's really awesome, Gaia-chan, so what did you say we go play on the swings? Naruto couldn't help but let out a genuine smile when the little girl beamed in happiness as she ran to the swings. So the duo spent the remainder of the day playing on the playground before Naruto took her to get some shaved ice from a vendor nearby. To Gaia, it was the most fun she has ever had. However, all good things will eventually come to an end. Soon the light began to fade as the sun started to set on the western horizon. Arigato Naruto, I enjoyed myself today, but it is getting late and I have to head home already. Gaia trailed off sadly until Naruto ruffled her hair playfully, earning a small grumble from her. Don't worry, I'll be here for a while. We can always meet back here tomorrow, so head on home because I'm sure that your uncle is worried about you. He gave her a foxy grin, allowing the remaining light to gleam off his fangs. Gaia smiled and nodded enthusiastically before running off, probably in the direction of her family's mansion that Baki had shown him earlier in the day. His crimson eyes narrowed when he noticed the hate-filled glares and mutterings of the villagers around him. He clamped down on his killer urges as he knew that it would not help him at all. He just let out a low growl before striding in the same direction, having already booked a room in an inn that his temporary Chunin tour guide had recommended to him in passing. After a quick shower and a change of clothes that he had bought since his old outfit had been shredded in the desert. His new look consisted of a black muscle undershirt, a pair of durable black pants taped to his ankles, a pair of fingerless black gloves instead of the original black bandages, and a crimson trench coat with a hood to finish the look. Also in a last-minute decision, he had gotten a plain black face mask that covered the lower half of his face. All of them were made from tough but durable silk that could only be found in Suna, allowing free movement while remaining tough to wear down. Having decided that he was satisfied with his choice of clothing, Naruto sat cross-legged on his bed as he began to meditate and spread his senses across the village. He had acquired the ability to sense emotions through the previous QB, though he could only sense high levels now since he is new to it. He was knocked out of his thoughts when he felt a sharp spike of fear and sadness coming from the direction of the Sabaku mansion. In a flash he was already out the window and bounding across the rooftops, his animal instinct telling him that he should hurry or something unfavorable might happen. Naruto could make out two figures on the rooftop of the mansion, one of them appeared to be Gaia and the other a male shinobi lying on the ground in a puddle of blood. Increasing his vision with his Yaki, he saw that the man fit the description of Yashimaru, and he had just revealed an entire chest pinned with primed exploding tags. With a sudden burst of Yaki, Naruto burst towards the stationary Gaia at a blinding speed. But Sabaku no Gaia. Aya was confused and afraid at how quick things were happening around her. She distinctively remembered her loving uncle telling her to meet him on the roof in 15 minutes. She had followed his instructions to the letter without suspicion, arriving on the rooftop with just the starry night sky to accompany her. The faint sound of air being sliced was heard before her automatic sand defense had come to her rescue, blocking a barrage of kunai that had been thrown at her seemingly unprotected back. The Redeed had turned around to see a masked ninja standing behind her with kunai floating around him. She immediately noticed the Suna Chunin uniform on the man and knew that it was another assassin from her father. Her attitude immediately slipping into that of cold indifference, the mode that she usually went into when dealing with her father's assassins. It was something that was taught to her by her uncle during one of their training sessions. Another assassin, you will fail just like the others. Gaia raised her hand causing the sand on the rooftop to flow towards her. The masked shinobi leapt into action, hoping to stop her from gathering the sand before it was too late. Several kunai shot towards the immobile Jinchuriki, their progress were halted as a solid block of sand materialized in front of them. The assassin wasn't idle as he had already started moving after he had launched his kunai, his path directly ahead as he used the sand wall to cover his movements. Gaia lowered the sand wall to find the assassin closer than before, his hands shimmered with a blue glow that signified the use of chakra scalpels. Gaia quickly rolled to the side as the shinobi dived at her causing him to overshoot, her small arm shot out in a straight line as if punching the guy. The masked assassin couldn't maneuver in mid-dive, so he closed his eyes as a sand tendril followed the young redeeded girl's instructions and pierced through his protective vest and out his back. His body slammed into the ground and tumbled a little before coming to a stop, blood already leaking from the wound in his abdomen. Aya's sand swirled around her as if poised to strike the final blow. Her world came crashing down when the assassin pulled off his mask to reveal Yashimaru. The sand collapsed at her small feet as she fell onto her knees, tears falling from her eyes at being betrayed by her beloved uncle. Why you two? She screamed in anger, frustration and sadness as she clutched her head. In doing so missed the apologetic smile that he had as he pulled open his Chunin vest, exposing a primed set of explosive notes that had begun to sizzle. Aya looked up at the sound, and her eyes widened at the amount of exploding tags on the man's chest, her thoughts in too much disarray to summon the sand into a shield. I've always hated you Gaia, you took my sister away from me, Sayonara. Yashimaru sighed as he slumped onto the ground dead, the explosive tags just a fraction away from detonation. Gaia shut her eyes tightly and prayed for anyone to save her. She heard the deafening roar of a dozen or more exploding tags going off, but strangely did not feel the excruciating pain that she had expected, thus prompting her to crack open her eyes slightly. The first thing she saw was crimson, the color of the coat that the man standing in front of her was wearing. The tail end of it fluttering from the wind generated from the force of the explosion. She looked up and could make out that one of his hands was outstretched. She peered around his form slightly to see a solid wall of crimson energy in front of him. Further out she saw the charred and destroyed section of the mansion's roof. Are you alright Gaia-chan? The voice, although deeper and more feral sounding, she couldn't mistake it for any other. The little redeed was proven right when the figure drew back his hood and looked down at her, his crimson orbs filled with rage, sadness and worry. Naruto, Gaia murmured as she took a step towards him, her emotional walls broke as he squatted down to her level and opened his arms. Naruto. Naruto grunted slightly as the air was knocked out of him by the young Jinchuriki's tackle. He embraced her as she sobbed into his chest. It's alright Gaia-chan, just let it out. He whispered softly as he soothingly stroked her hair and back until she managed to calm down and wiped away her tears. Naruto-san, why did your voice sound different when you first spoke? And what was that energy thing you used? I was taught that chakra was blue in color, Gaia asked as she led her savior into her bedroom. No dirty thinking, you pervs. Naruto sat down beside her on the bed as he ran a hand through his hair. Alright, you might want to get comfortable, this is going to be a rather long story. So the demon lord proceeded to regurgitate his sorrowful tale to the attentive child. Not once did he miss out on a detail, and never sweetening it for her. Gaia had burrowed her head into his arm as she cried at how hard his life had been. She had growled in satisfaction when she heard of how he had disposed of his torturers. I don't care that you are a demon, Naruto-sama, you are my first friend, and you saved me, Gaia had said after he was done with his tale, getting a laugh from said demon and a ruffling off her head. I will not lie to you now, Gaia, now that you have heard of my plans. Will you join me to make this world a better place, so that people like us would not have to suffer? Naruto asked seriously, his tone devoid of any playfulness. Hi Naruto-sama, I will follow you to the ends of the world if I have to. Gaia exclaimed. Well Gaia-chan, as you have agreed to my proposal, so I will grant you full access to the Ichibi's power. Fear not about his insanity, I will just be transferring his power over to you, and not a full merger like me and my two-san. You would probably age a little due to the Yaki influx, and your appearance might change a little as well, so hold still. He told her before running through several strange hand seals and slammed his palm into her seal as the other hand pressed over it in a claw-like gesture. Inten. Akuma Safuku, Yin release. Demonic subjugation. The claw-like hand grasps slightly and begins to tug on something. He pulled his hand back slowly as Gaia saw a translucent spirit in his grasp. The spirit substance cursed in a strange language before Naruto simply crushed it into particles and focused his attention on the seal, which had begun to fluctuate slightly. Yanten. Denjin no Idm, Yang release. Power transference. Naruto watched as the seal shattered and a bubbling golden Yaki surrounded Gaia in a cocoon, his hands already blazing through a set of 100 hand seals. Onumten. Akumichimetsu no Jutsu, Yin-Yang release. Demonic transcendence technique. Naruto stuck both his hands into the cocoon of golden energy, his crimson Yaki beginning to bleed into the cocoon. Just a few wisps that targeted her DNA strands and white blood cells to absorb the Yaki, jump-starting the process. A shockwave of energy pulsed out and slammed him against the room's wall. He groaned as he stood back up and watched as the golden and crimson energy faded and was drawn into a figure that dropped out of the cocoon. Gaia had aged to that of a 10-year-old, only slightly taller than most others her age. She had begun to feel out in the womanly department a little, not so much that it would be noticed, but it definitely was growing. Her muscles having gained more density and mass, but not enough to give her an overly bulky look, but more like a professional swimmer's body. Her red hair had grown out to her mid-back, her once pale green eyes were now golden and slitted, and she had a pair of sandy-colored fox ears and a single fox tail that swished behind her of the same color. Naruto-sama, why am I a kitsune demon? And how do I hide my extra features? Gaia asked in a rather deep voice that still managed to contain some femininity in it. Just call the power back inside you, and the extra appendages will revert back to normal. As for the fox part, I guess it was because of my own power that worked in the absence of Shukaku. Gaia nodded once and drew her power back in, watching as her ears returned back to normal and her tail slither back into her spine. She looked at herself in the mirror and performed a few poses that would have sent Naruto flying with a nosebleed if she were a few more years older. With a grin she kneeled down in front of her savior and lord, her head bowed down in respect. You have given me a new reason in life, I will forever be in your debt. My body and will are yours to command, Kyuubix-sama. While I don't mind you addressing me by my title in private, be sure to only refer to me by name when we are in public, Gaia-chan. Naruto informed the new Ichibi, whom nodded in understanding before perking up slightly. Naruto-sama, my Suna no Kanchi, Sand Sensing, has picked up on multiple K's units headed in our direction. I fear my power burst has attracted the attention of dear old dad and his troops. Gaia looked at her lord for instructions. We are too few and untrained to fight a Kage and a village of highly trained shinobi. I will provide a distraction while you escape to the village entrance. I will meet you there shortly. Naruto replied and his subordinate looked ready to argue, but a glare was enough to silence her. The duo made their way onto the roof to find themselves surrounded by mask-wearing shinobi, and right in front of them was the Yondaime Kazekage, Sabaku no Saken. His usual Kazekage robe wrapped around his figure minus the hat, his auburn hair swayed in the night breeze as his eyes widened upon seeing Gaia. Gaia? He stammered in shock before he swung his angry gaze onto Naruto. You. What have you done to my daughter? Daughter? Daughter you say? What kind of father are you that you send assassins after your own daughter? Naruto shouted back and smirked as he watched the village leader flinch. I did what was the best for my village. Gaia was shown to be unable to control the Shukaku, and sooner or later it would have broken out and endangered us again. I'd rather it be now when I'm in my prime and able to do something. Do you think it is easy for me to do so? She is my daughter. I die a little inside every time I send an assassin out, but unfortunately the council has me under their thumbs. They control the finance and trading of the village. If they decide to pull out, Sasuke clenched his fist as he looked at the ground. Naruto's anger had dissipated slightly at the remark. He looked at the Kazekage somberly before letting out a drawn-out sigh. Gaia was on her knees as she clutched her head in pain. She snapped her head up to reveal glowing golden eyes. You could have at least spent some time with me. Did you know that my suffering was because of the loneliness, because of the fact that you looked at me as one of your shinobi instead of your own daughter? Had it occurred to you that I might have turned out this way all because of your own faults? Answer me, father. She roared out as the sand on the streets and in the air formed a miniature cyclone around both her and Naruto, who whistled in admiration. Sasuke and the other K's units had to channel chakra into their feet lest they risk being pulled into the sand cyclone, though his eyes held remorse and pain as he heard his daughter's words. Naruto turned to look at him with glowing crimson orbs. His heart was filled with terror at the sight of those eyes. She is right, Sabaku. No, Sasuke, it is by your own hand that this happened. For now you have lost the chance to know your daughter. I shall spare your pathetic village this time, but I shall let you know now that should your village fall, it would be by your daughter's hand, Jana. Naruto waved as he knocked Gaia out with a chop to the neck before hefting her onto his shoulder, a blue flame materializing in his palm. Kitsune Bai. Furasu, Foxfire. Flash. The blue flame glowed brighter as it started spiraling around him. It released a bright blue flash that blinded the shinobi that were staring at it. By the time they recovered their sight, the two demons had vanished already. Sasuke stared dumbstruck for a moment before stealing his voice and snapping out orders for the K's units to spread out across the village, with the majority heading towards the entrance. With Naruto and Gaia. Gaia groaned as she awoke from the jarring sensations in her sleep. The first thing she noticed was that the landscape was passing by her at a fast pace. The second thing she noticed was that she was currently laying on something soft. She looked down and saw that she was on the back of a tiger-sized fox. I see that you're finally awake, the fox growled out in Naruto's demonic voice. Naruto-sama. Gaia voiced uncertainly. Yeah, it's me, I'll answer your questions later. Talking and running isn't very fun, Naruto replied in between pants as he ran across the barren sandy wastelands of K's no Kuni. Gaia shrugged as she buried herself back in her lord's soft fur, her eyes drifted close and she was asleep again before she knew it. An hour later Gaia stirred from her short nap, her hands moved up to her face to rub the remaining sleep from her eyes. Blinking a few times, she made out the figure of Naruto sitting on a log in front of a small bonfire. The blue-white flames flickering in the wind causing the shadows to dance along the sand. She walked over and sat down beside him. How are you feeling? Naruto asked as he turned to look at her, his crimson eyes conveying his slight worry. I'm fine, thanks for stopping me when you did. I don't know what happened, I just heard him talking, and I suddenly lost it. Gaia placed her face in her hands as she told him. That was your newfound demonic power. If you don't learn to control it then it will control you. Even I have yet to earn full control over all 9 of my tails. I like you, am still quite new to my abilities. The control I have now is thanks to Kurama. He was the previous QB, passing down his knowledge to me, thus granting me access to 3 tails of my power. The remainder can only be done through hard work and practice, which is why I'm going to be training you in your abilities from now on. Naruto smirked as a look of excitement flashed across the girl's face that was quickly replaced by her normal poker face. I'll do my best, QB-sama. Gaia bowed her head in respect, which was quickly lifted up by the demon lord. No need to bow to me, we are now kin after all, besides I can't have a beautiful face like that staring at the ground, that would be a crime. Naruto chuckled when he saw a huge blush erupt across her face and she turned away with a pout. Though in her mind there was a chibi. Gaia squealing, Naruto-sama thinks I'm beautiful. So I guess you would like to know about my transformation just now, right? Naruto asked as he handed her a stick of what appeared to be barbecue meat. She gratefully accepted it and nodded in response to his question, tearing ravenously into the meat as she had gotten quite an appetite to go with her transcendence. Lets me think, well, that was one of my abilities and it should be one of yours as well. Basically that was just me shape-shifting back into my true form, but since I can only access up to 3 tails of power, that's the limit, I can go in that form as well. My other current powers include the ability to manipulate my Yauki in the same way that you are able to manipulate sand, the blue flames of the fox goddess Inari known as the Kitsune Bai, and ability to use jutsu from all elements. Though my current jutsu arsenal is only that of what Kurama had seen and learned by himself over the years, anything else I have to learn by hand myself. Naruto explained as he swallowed his entire skewer of meat in one bite. Gaia gazed at him in admiration as she finished her portion as well. Naruto-sama is so powerful. I bet you can crush all the humans with your power. No, I can't, Gaia-chan, at least not yet. Well, humans are selfish and fickle creatures, you yourself must have studied up on the different types of humans. The normal civilians and villagers won't pose any threat, the Genins and Chunins are pretty much easy to deal with. However, the Jounins are an entirely different class from Chunins, as are the Anbu from Jounins, and the Kages from everyone else. Does that mean that my dad, I mean the xNamikazeKyuubix, is that strong as well? Gaia asked with a little venom in her voice. Yes, that is true, he has the ability to manipulate gold dust using his Jitan, magnet release, Kekkei Genkai. The Sandaime Hokage in my ex-village is said to have mastered every jutsu in Konoha's arsenal, thus earning him the nickname of the Professor. The greatest enemy one can have on the battlefield is yourself. If you're unsure of yourself, then you will fall, and if you're overconfident, then you will still fall. Never underestimate your opponent or overestimate yourself. That was something Kurama learnt after facing down my bastard of a biological father. I understand, Naruto-sama, you are indeed as humble as you are strong. Gaia nodded sagely, earning a soft sigh from her lord. Why do I get the feeling that she's going to be just as bad as a fangirl, Naruto thought glumly, before several growls emanated from the dunes around them. They both leapt up into battle positions with their backs against each other, watching as a dozen dark brown rat-like creatures crawled out from under the sand. These are shinobi, corpse consumer. They travel underground by burrowing and usually move in packs of dozen or more. They earn their name due to their favorite food being corpses, but they are not above eating fresh meat as well. Thanks to their diet, their claws and teeth are highly infectious, as is their bodily fluids, should they get into any open wounds. I informed him as the giant rat circled the duo, as if judging their capabilities. We let this be your first lesson then, that even weak creatures can become deadly if they are fought in a group. That was one of Konoha's strengths, their value on teamwork and combination attacks. Do you think that you will be able to handle half of them? Naruto asked his student. I will try my best, master. Do or do not. There is no try. Have more faith in yourself, my student, you are a demon lord as well. He grasped her shoulder in a calming notion before both of them started drawing on their demonic power. Crimson and golden auras swirling about their respective owners, both sets of eyes glowing with hidden power. The shinobi chose that moment to attack, half a dozen to each of them. Their snouts filled with disgusting rotten teeth snapping away as they charged straight in, the two demons leapt away to give each other more fighting space. But Naruto danced and weaved his way through the relentless assault of jaws and claws, using his yaki manipulation to create hands that punched and smacked the offensive party away. A particularly giant shinobi leapt at him only to find itself skewered on dozens of yaki spikes that had been shot from Naruto's fingers. It fell dead onto the sand as blood leaked out from its wounds. The remaining 5 proved to have some form of intelligence as they stuck together and attacked in formation, hoping to get a lucky hit in on their powerful prey. Too bad for them that they didn't realize that their target wasn't the prey, but he was the predator. The poor rodents didn't last long. The yaki-enhanced claws tore their way through flesh and bone, the increased corrosive nature of the yaki, allowing him to negate the toxic effect of their blood. Soon only one of them remained as a rather blood-free Naruto stood in front of it, glowing crimson eyes locked onto small beady little black eyes. It tried to scamper away, but he would have none of it. A yaki hand yanked it back by its long sinewy tail and threw it squealing into the air. The blade of pure crimson yaki split the body in half as it descended, sending a spray of blood across the area. Time to go check on that cute little student of mine, Naruto whistled as he reined his power back in and walked over to the retreated girls' fight. With Gaia took a deep breath as she settled into a loose defensive stance that she had been taught, her hands moving slightly as the sand around her followed in tandem. All of the shinobi decided to dive at her together, something that she had already anticipated seeing they outnumbered her. Taking half a step back, she stomped the ground, causing a shockwave of sand to ripple up from her position and knocking the attacking rodents into the air. She concentrated on one of the giant rats and sent a wave of sand spikes towards it, impaling the body in several different directions and killing it effectively. Gaia turned around and manipulated the sand into 2 giant fists, which she then used to crush another 2 of the attackers. She brought up a wall of sand to her right, allowing the diving shinobi to slam brutally into it. Twisting her body suddenly, she barely dodged another diving attempt at her. This caused the second rat to crash into the first, allowing Gaia to test out one of the techniques that she had remembered. Tsubaku kick, sand binding coffin. Gaia trapped the 2 giant rodents within a coffin of condensed sand that had wrapped around them. She then formed a grasping-like motion with her hand and turned her hand counterclockwise while closing it into a fist. Tsubaku SMSM, sand waterfall funeral. Gaia growled out as the sand surrounding the 2 rodents imploded and crushed them, blood leaked out from the sandy confines of the prison. She slowly relinquished control over the sand, allowing 2 crushed and mangled bodies to fall onto the ground. A screech sounded to her left and she turned around too late to find a claw descending towards her face. Luckily for her, Naruto had interfered and punched the Shidashima in the face before impaling it with a spear of Yaki. Your first lesson in a multiple opponent fight. Never take your eyes off any of them. Doing so would allow that one person to sneak up on you and finish you off when you are preoccupied with fighting the others. Naruto lectured, causing her to drop her head in sadness. I'm sorry Naruto-sama, I'll do better next time, I promise. Gaia apologized, getting a chuckle from him. Don't worry Gaia-chan, we all make mistakes. However, it is what we learn from our mistakes that make the difference, thus now you know your mistake so you can work on it. He told her, getting the Riti to perk up slightly. Though I am curious about that last attack you pulled, the one where you compressed the sand so fast that it seemed like it imploded. Ah, that was the Sabaku SMSM, which is the follow-up attack from the Sabaku kick, both are jutsus that the previous Jinchuriki of the Shukaku had used and were taught to me. Gaia explained to her master. Interesting, well it is late and we should be getting some sleep. Tomorrow we shall resume our journey. A feeling in my gut is telling me to head to Nami no Kuni, land of waves, Naruto whispered to himself before snuffing out the fire by having his student bury it under a pile of sand. He transformed into his one-tailed fox form, allowing Gaia to snuggle into him as he wrapped his tail around her. Soon the pair felt their eyelids growing heavier and allowed sleep to wash over them like a black tide, both of them knowing that their journey had only just begun. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video guys, let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video, bye bye.